Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video. Yeah, I don't know. PBC.
PBC.
I think we should talk about PBC season finale.
I think we should.
Which is the 6th episode. There is a deal gone awry because Rico promised the general, who they have a contract with. We still don't know. The orb. It's an AI thing. That's all we know.
Yes.
And Rico made a bunch of sweeteners in that deal that drove the price up. And it had to do with like water fountains that shot out Pepsi and various different ridiculous things. The team had to go to the big leadership conference, and hijinks ensued. It's like I can't even get through it. Michaela takes the stage to give a keynote speech about accountants as a distraction. Hunter and Rico make up, and they're able to stop the deal from going through because Jamie lays his life on the line.
That's true.
For the team and is able to stop Lance. And Sarah makes the deal. Dave is there. He drives them all over there in his Winnebago that later gets towed with one of his kids inside of it. But the big stinger is we learn Kate Flannery's character, not the real CEO. And I asked for it, and I received it. The big Danny Trejo stinger, where we learn that Ricky the janitor is in fact actually the CEO. And he takes off his janitor uniform. He's got the black turtleneck on there, like Steve Jobs. Takes the stage, gives the speech, the whole nine. Marty's on. He's a sales bro after all, and we finally get the big kiss scene between Hunter and Sarah. But we learn Hunter's accepted a new position, and that's
right.
kind of where the season was left hanging in the balance as far as that goes. But you and I were texting, and it said, you had said that you really feel like this is like the perfect ending to everything.
Mm-hmm.
But they left that Hunter stinger in there to kind of, I feel like if there's a third season,
right,
we can move on this. But what did you think overall of the finale?
I mean, that was perfectly what this show is all about. Like, I mean, really funny, but the storyline is still happening. Like, you can still do that. You can have a storyline and still be zany, which the show is. And like all these little parts, Jamie actually being a part of it a little bit more too. Like we had said, we only want him not really being a part, but now that, there's little bits of him more and more every time.
Yeah.
And that really, for me, was like the perfect thing where we talked about him being, whether it was on here or just our own private conversations, him being like the MVP of this season.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something you said because he really doesn't have that much action in any of the episodes. It's just maybe like 4 minutes each episode, but it's amazing if it's even that. And then he comes through and saves the day by like literally putting his life on the line. And for that save, and then we find out that Hunter, maybe, is accepted a new position. But when we find out that it's Trejo, I mean, I was done. I watched this, I think like maybe a half hour after they released it, very quickly after they released it, because I was, on break and I didn't have anything to do, and I was very excited. And I'm like, that's to me like a perfect way to go out if you want to go out. If they're able to, if they're not, not maybe wanting to do a second season or not able to do a second season, I feel like they're probably always able, or third season, I'm sorry. I move on from the second season. I think it's a fine way to go out. But then if you can do a third season, you do have Hunter storyline. So either way, I feel like it's that perfect way of ending a show or creating a new way to go from. My question would be on that end, if they do go forward, is Danny Trejo going to be like an active character, or just because he's the CEO, maybe like once every 3 episodes? Not that really matters. I mean, we want our little bits of Danny Trejo. We don't want too much. Like him as the janitor was so funny, and just those little bits of him. And I feel like that's maybe what we get is him as the CEO, and it probably doesn't change the show much on that thing. But I also just thought the very end of the show, the after credit scene with Jamie doing the poetry was also just perfect. I mean, there's something with the IT guy. I just, we'll do like a full season, I guess, thing too. But it's so nice to have a show like this, and we like blaze through it. It's weird. It felt like we just started. Now we're over it, and it's so nice to have a show like this that really just does its own thing. And I'm happy we have it. And, I hope they do a third season. I hope it really is in the end, because I do think that the comedy will last. But, man, if it is, what a great show we got. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Amazing.
hopeful. I think we're hopeful. It is.
I guess more appropriate would be snapping fingers.
Yeah. I think that we are hopeful that this continues, just because I think after episode 5, I said this was the funniest. That was the hardest I've laughed in the last 10 years. Or like since The Office in its prime. And I sat and thought about that. There was one other instance where I laughed really, really hard. And that was on Ricky Gervais' show Afterlife, which is a whole different, ball of wax, but it's up there, and it's, I don't know why. I think it's just timing. We end up comparing this show to Blockbuster, probably because we watched Blockbuster like right before this started, and we reviewed it, and it got canceled. And a big part of the reason why was that it had a lot of potential. It had a lot of, it should have been better, and it just wasn't. And then you have this series for now, season 2, come along and improve so much on what was already a very good formula and a very good season 1. And then this season was just like head and shoulders even better.
Yeah.
And so, I would be disappointed if they don't figure out a way to keep making this or whatever. But I mean, I just feel like the writing was, and you wonder how much, because this was something that we talked about too with Jessica, who plays Sarah, when she came on last year around the time that the first season had wrapped. You wonder how much of it was ad lib, or like improv, or like almost like sketch comedy in the way that old Will Ferrell movies like Talladega Nights, Anchorman, whatever, were kind of like others, but kind of like almost sketch comedy, where it's like, okay, here's a basic outline of this scene, and you do like 5 or 10 takes, and we're just gonna see which one's the funniest. Because there was so much, like some of the, I would say, especially some of the stuff that Hunter would say felt so snappy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the timing was so snappy that it almost felt like there's no way that this is scripted. This has to be some level of improv or some level of, and that was one of the things that she had said, was there was quite a bit of, riffing and stuff like that. But I mean, the framework being there to begin with is a big part of it. And I just thought that, tip to tail, all of these characters are very well written. They're very well acted. The story as a whole is extremely funny, but also very relatable in a lot of ways. And I just find it fascinating that when this started, they said this is a show by accountants for accountants, but it transcends that so much.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, we've said it many times. This is network quality. This is streaming service quality. This is, the quality that you would see. It reminds me a lot of Arrested Development. I think it obviously The Office, but some of those just great, like early 2000 to mid 2000 comedies that were so popular at the time, it has shades of all of that. And so I would be very bummed out if this does not continue. But if it doesn't, it kind of, I feel like it ended on a pretty positive note.
Oh yeah. I mean, I will say when you take I love Abbott Elementary. That show's on network, and so there's money, there's different things. But when you take like bang for buck, dollars to donuts, I mean, I don't know if there's a show really that's done more.
Right.
And the other thing is like there's some people you've kind of seen before, obviously Danny Trejo, Pete Gardner, who plays Dave. He's like one of those guys that just pops up. But everyone else I really haven't seen before.
Right.
I mean, unless it's like super indie or whatever. I know Emily Tosta, who plays Lindsay's, like got a ton of followers on Instagram because I was like, oh, maybe we'll try to get her on the show, but she's at 300K on the but yeah. So, but we may get Josh Simpson for all the other PB. We may get him on the show, and I'll be able to talk to him. But who plays Jamie? It's amazing what they do, and it's almost refreshing. I think I mentioned Kate Flannery too, of course, but it's refreshing to have a show showing you that you don't need a lot of money to make something funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't cross any line.
Like,
that's what I mean. Just
high
like
quality.
And that's the thing that maybe like going forward, because I don't watch a lot of things like this. I don't watch a lot of these half-hour sitcoms.
Right.
And so to see something like this, it'd be great because I miss those. This is what I grew up on. I mean, like Seinfeld is still my favorite show of all time, and it'll probably never be beat. I mean, it just won't be. And to go back and to like, I want to watch this, season again, or at least a couple. I mean, when Jamie does the whole bird poop, I mean, it's one of the funniest things ever. I watched it online before I even watched the episode because it came out before the episode was released, and I was dying. And I'm like, well, maybe this won't be as funny going forward, but it was actually funnier. So
for season 2, what would you give this out of 10?
This season out of 10. I mean, I'd give it a 9. I mean, honestly, like, because I'm weighing it against what it has too.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it was on network, though, I mean, I'm still gonna laugh. I'm still gonna like love it. I mean, so I think 9, and I think it just bumps me out, honestly, that nobody else seems to know about this show, because I think it holds up with just anything else out there. 100%.
I would say 9.5, and that's based on what they're trying to accomplish and how they're able to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's really, really good. So
it's
if
super
you're
good.
Listening, check it out. So
yeah, for sure.
All right. We'll move on.